Chad, we are entering the summer of LeBron. And we turn to the book of James for this because it's not just LeBron, it's Bronny.
Yeah.
It will be the June of James for sure because, believe it or not, we are how that played out with Jim Gray. He goes to Miami. He's taking his talents to South Beach. Changed the landscape of the NBA, really, with the super teams. 2014 is whenever he went back to Cleveland, won a title, and then he went to the Lakers in 2018-19. And he's been there since. He has an opt-out. He has an option, a player option on his contract, a $51 million option for this upcoming season. Now, Rich Paul, the CEO of Clutch Sports, his agent, has already said that Game 2 of the Western Conference Final, he was on the AltCast and said LeBron is a free agent. Said that in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. Now, technically, he's not a free agent. He can use the player option and be a Los Angeles Laker. He has until June 29th to decide this. And, Chad, guess when the NBA draft is? June 26th. It's going to be at least the June of James.
The plot thickens.
And the summer of James, whenever we find out that, well, he's going to opt out or he's going to want to sign and be traded to play with Bronny. Because let's go through here. Because he's over the age of 38, there's in the CBA a rule so you can't back in money for older players. Because he's over the age of 38, he can only sign up to a 3-year contract. The max deal is 3 years, $161 million. He can get that from the Lakers. He can also take a minimum contract if he wanted to, if Bronny James, hypothetically, goes to like the Phoenix Suns in the NBA draft. The Pistons and the 76ers are the two teams that can actually absorb the contract that he would be able to sign, 5% increase, he would be able to sign based on their current salary cap. Well, I'm going to read off some teams that could move around salary cap money, Chad, and I bet we'll come up with 10 teams. 10 teams, which was the report that over 10 teams had inquired about Bronny James, and he had turned down options to work out for them. So let's count. Pistons and 76ers, according to CBS Sports, could afford this max free agent deal if he opted out of the option and he decided he wanted to enter free agency. LeBron. Others that can create space. The Hornets, Raptors, Jazz, the Magic, and the Spurs. There's Oklahoma City. They have a ton of draft picks. And then there's Phoenix. And the connection with the Phoenix Suns, the one team that reportedly will work out Bronny James other than the Los Angeles Lakers. The connection is James Jones, their general manager, who played with LeBron in Miami and in Cleveland. So there's a great connection there. They're going to work out Bronny James. Other than the Lakers are the presumed favorite to retain LeBron. That's why Bronny factors into whatever the Lakers want to do. Because the Suns, who draft, 17th, they don't have a second-round pick because they've traded all these future picks away. Chad, the drama is about to unfold. Because while you could also include a trade, and we know Golden State tried to trade for LeBron at the trade deadline this past season, the Knicks have also been mentioned. It's funny that the Knicks were mentioned when Dolan was mentioned as the Nepo baby, a nepotism example by Rich Paul. But Bronny matters because the minimum deal that LeBron could accept would involve Phoenix if he's a free agent. The Lakers are the front runners. The Suns are in play. But here comes the summer of LeBron, and really the summer of LeBron and Bronny, because we will end up paying more attention and spending more time and talking more about this free agent saga. If he wants to pursue this, and we know LeBron loves the drama, if he wants to pursue this, more than we will the actual NBA season combined, regular season combined, because Bronny's not going to see the floor. LeBron's going to be 40 years old. But the saga of will they play together and which franchise is granted access, right now there are two, we see how it goes. But it starts June 26th. And if the Lakers were to pass up on Bronny James, and let's hypothetically say that no team drafts him, which is what should happen, he goes undrafted, both become free agents, Bronny immediately, and LeBron 3 days later. then they're a package deal. I think that ultimately is what's going to happen, unless you want to draft Bronny and then retain LeBron, which would be behind the scenes, and the Lakers could go ahead and do that and wrap that up immediately. Get ready. Buckle up, even if you don't want it, even if you're going to be suffocated by the summer of LeBron. It's about to be force-fed to you, because ESPN and company, they will make sure that LeBron stays happy and LeBron stays atop the headlines. And that includes his son, who all of a sudden is a top 50 pick in the ESPN Top 100.
It's why I laugh when Kendrick Perkins, when criticizing the crew in that video that we played.
Yep.
Talking about, hey, why are we talking about Bronny James? Here's a guy who's maybe a late second-round pick. What are we doing talking about him? Thinking, you know exactly what you're doing, because it's LeBron James's kid. And I think everyone there at the table could have said that at the podium, saying,
but we're
talking about him because our bosses tell us to talk about him,
but
because we have the NBA rights and it's LeBron James's kid.
But then you have right next to Kendrick Perkins, you have analysts and reporters saying this is not a Nepo baby example.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well,
but that's why he had to respond that way.
And they're doing that because they're beholden to LeBron James, and they're trying to get info from him, and they're trying to help him out. But my point is, they're talking about Bronny James because he's LeBron James' son.
No doubt.
I do disagree with Kendrick Perkins acting like he doesn't know why they're discussing it.
Well,
debate amongst yourselves, right? Like, if you're them, Kendrick Perkins was in the right in what he was saying about him not being ready. Mark Spears, I think, was in the right in quoting the scouts he was talking to in front office people. I think, we've hashed this out. People that are beholden to LeBron are putting out good things about Bronny James to get info in return from LeBron. Now, on to this summer of LeBron. I only hope Jim Gray is there to announce the decision with us whenever he decides what he's going to do. Could be J.J. Redick announcing two decisions at once.
Yeah.
J.J. Redick to the Lakers and LeBron James coming back to the Lakers. That could be the announcement.
And Bronny.
But let's not be intellectually dishonest on why people talk about LeBron James. It's because it's LeBron James.
Well, they don't. Why they talk about Bronny?
Yeah.
But you could talk about Bronny and honestly say, like Kendrick Perkins was trying to do, this dude's a second-round pick. Let's stop acting like he's a first-round pick. Second-round pick at best is what he was trying to say. And that came after Mark Spears quoted NBA scouts and what they thought about him before and then after the NBA Combine. And on the same set, you have him compared to first-round talent and the opposite of what nepotism is all about. And trying to just straightforward telling the fan base, no, this isn't. LeBron doesn't want anything to do with this. Bronny wants to be his own player, his own man. He doesn't really want to play with his father. That's never been his dream. They played the clips, and they tried to piece everything together. They tried to make the comparisons that Mark Spears threw out, the comps, make sense and almost be a compliment. They tried to make it seem like because he answered questions in such a great way that made him ready for the NBA instead of averaging less than 5 points per game at USC. And I mean, again, sitting in a bubble, you have a player coming off a health incident where he had a heart attack less than a year ago. Glad he's okay, but think about if it's just player A and you list all of the different details of what the last year have been, and then you just add in LeBron wants this. That's all that really matters, and that's all that's going to matter come NBA draft night when the Lakers and the Suns are on the clock. And any other team that they want to go actually work out for, they're going to have to make the decision. Do we want LeBron or don't we want or do we want to move on and move on with our franchise? Because if you draft Bronny, you're more or less trading that pick in exchange for LeBron James to sign a 3-year contract with you at 40 years old. Yeah,
the only thing that interests me on this is if he leaves the Lakers. Like Bronny James being drafted in the second round by the Lakers seems like the inevitable conclusion to this story. And then LeBron playing 1 or 2 more years with his son, 2 to 3 max with the Lakers, feels like what's going to happen with J.J. Redick accompanying them as the head coach. That's boring to me. That whole scenario is very boring. The Nepo baby thing played out while true, but that's what I feel like it's going to happen. If LeBron goes elsewhere, the Knicks, for example, which would be a shock.
That would be a trade.
After what Rich Paul did, right? But if he's somewhere else and then Bronny isn't drafted or ends up somewhere else, that's at least remotely interesting to me. LeBron James is not going to shut up, okay? He likes to talk. He's got a very active social media account. He will say his opinion on everything, and he will talk. This is a time where it would have been better served for both him and Bronny to be as quiet as possible. Bronny's been pretty quiet. He had his media availability at the Combine. He spoke a little bit, but he's been pretty quiet about everything, which I think is smart. Rich Paul is also going to talk. I hadn't talked about him on an alt-cast of the NBA Western Conference Finals. He's going to continue to talk. He doesn't help their case either when he speaks. When he says things like, anyone who's acting like Bronny is a Nepo baby is naive, and then following that up with an example of a Nepo baby and saying, well, no one criticizes Jim Dolan when his dad's the one who built the empire, and he's done a terrible job leading that business. Why are they criticizing Bronny? It's different in different sports. But you're also admitting that Bronny is a Nepo baby,
yes,
which he is. He doesn't need to be in the NBA right now. He's not proven anything. He's not earned it yet. He has a chance to. He has a chance to stay in college, go somewhere else, get better, earn a draft position. None of that's going to happen. LeBron James is going to get him his draft spot wherever he ends up. And I think it's likely to be L.A.
Yeah, and they are certainly the front runner.
Yeah.
Because
he's on the team currently.
Well, he's on the team, but it's just interesting that his spokesman is saying, Rich Paul is saying he's already a free agent. He is currently a free agent, which it means Lakers have to step up and do as they're told. And either they or Phoenix will. But Phoenix has first shot, which is very intriguing on June 26th.
I would love nothing more than for the Lakers to show some backbone and not do anything that LeBron says other than pay him the money that he signed in his contract.
Well, he can opt in prior to this. If he wants to, he could end this and just opt in and take the $51 million. But chances are he waits, and he has until June 29th, so he just waits to see what happens on draft night with his son.
Waits until he sees what happens there. But point being, you're the Los Angeles Lakers. You can rebuild quickly with a new nucleus. This is possible with your ability to sign free agents. And I don't understand how an organization with this much prestige allows themselves to be held hostage at any point by a guy who brought you one title inside of a bubble in a COVID year. And that team is nowhere near ready to compete for a championship. And LeBron James, a year older, is not going to have them anywhere closer to competing for a championship. And his son, Bronny James, will have them much further away from competing for championships if he actually sees the floor.
But he won't.
In the NBA early on.
Unless LeBron says so.
And that's my point. Why are they doing what LeBron wants? I don't understand that.
He's the only one that really moves the needle. That's why. I mean, otherwise, why would he have this power?
I'm the Lakers. I want to win titles.
You had reportedly over 10 organizations wanting to work out Bronny James, looking for the blessing to.
Yeah, I would operate differently if I was the owner of the LA Lakers. I want to win titles. The Lakers are going to be interesting to people no matter what, with or without LeBron James. Thanks for the one COVID-shortened year title that we won. We're going to do what we need to do to win a championship. Your son seems like a good kid. I'm not going to draft him. He's not ready. I'd love for someone to step up to him and say that. I don't know that anybody is, though.
No. Jenny Buss is great friends with LeBron. That's not going to happen. And you only have to read the first 2 pages of the book to know that LeBron wants to play with Bronny. Right?
Which book?
Any book. Any book that LeBron picks up.
He picks up?
Anyone that he's photographed. Any book that he's photographed with. First 2 pages, it will tell you, thou shalt draft Bronny James. That's in the book of James, which we're entering in the month of June.
I'd become a Lakers fan if they said, we're not going to do it. Tough.
Well, the only way to prove it is to not draft him.
Yeah.
Both franchises just don't draft him. But then you
don't even sign him.
But then you end up where
none of it. Like, we don't want him here.
But you can sign him. You can sign him to a 2-way contract, and that's again, you're not wasting a draft pick. It's a 2-way contract, and you get LeBron James. So you could do it that way. If you end up drafting Bronny after what we've seen on the floor, then you're doing the bidding of LeBron.
Yeah. I would just really appreciate that level of toughness and fortitude from an organization to do that and say that. It's not going to happen. I'm dreaming.
Not in
but
this
I'm
league.
giving you what I would do if I ran the Lakers. I would hope they would do that. They're not going to.
But the players run the league
because they
now.
are beholden to LeBron James, and that's sad.
Yep.
It's a sad state of the league that's where we see it. Now, Rich Paul, who has said we're not interested in a two-way contract, what happens if the entire league decides
that's
for him?
That's according to a scout through Mark Spears.
Right. But let's say that the entire league decides, you're only going to get a two-way contract. Let's say 15 teams want to sign him to a two-way contract, but that's all they want to do. No one's interested in signing him. Does he go overseas and play for a year? I mean, do they actually call the teams on their bluff and not sign it?
LeBron would just be a free agent. You sign LeBron James, you get Bronny James. That's how it would work out because he can opt out. He has the option. So 3 days later, if he's only offered the two-way contract, if Bronny is, then LeBron doesn't have to opt in. He can just be a free agent and say, hey, this is what part of my deal is. You're getting me at a minimum contract, which is still a ton.
Yeah.
And you're signing, and Bronny's getting a roster spot. Again, that would be part of it. Just like, in essence, you're trading a pick in exchange for LeBron if you're Phoenix.
If I were, I don't know the team or who has cap space or what, but let's say it's the Indiana Pacers or the Minnesota Timberwolves because they just lost in the conference finals.
Detroit Pistons or the 76ers apparently have the space to sign him.
Again,
according to the NBA.
Just play with my hypothetical here for a second. If I'm the Indiana Pacers or Minnesota Timberwolves who just got to the Final Four of the NBA, so you feel like you're really close to a title, that it's attainable with your core coming down.
Yeah.
I would make that deal. That's the one I would make. If I thought LeBron James at 40 years old was a missing connective tissue for my roster that could put us over the top because we're so close, and if you get LeBron James, his veteran leadership, he's going to mesh well with this roster, young roster, whatever, and do well, I would make that deal with the devil and bring on his son also to be at the end of the bench. I'd do that.
What are the 15?
If I'm the Lakers, I do not do that because I don't think they're anywhere close to a title.
Well, because they won't go in with Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Even though they have financially.
So I wouldn't do it.
Chad, there's been a lot of talk about player revenue sharing at the SEC meetings that took place this week. There is a big benefit, though, that came from this week in Destin through the conference.
Yeah, so I love movie analogies. Here's one for you. I love Major League. I love Major League 2. A very good baseball, sports, comedy, feel-good movie. I would argue one of the greatest sports movies of all time, not just a comedy, was the original Major League. Rick Wild Thing Vaughn, Jake Taylor, Willie Mays Hayes, all terrific characters. The main characters, Pedro Serrano, back for Major League 2. I cared a lot about Major League 2. Tennessee grad, Jack Parkman in it. Loved him. David Keith, terrific actor. Great film. Delivered. Why? Because I knew the characters from the first movie. Even though Omar Epps stepped in for Wesley Snipes and played Willie Mays Hayes, he looked a lot like Wesley Snipes. He ran like Mays, and as they say, he hit like shit. Mm-hmm. But I love that movie, and I love that quote, and I love those characters. And I got attached to it. I could watch those movies on repeat, Major League 1 or Major League 2, because I'm attached to the characters. Major League 3, back to the minors, was an outright disaster. Why? Because they brought Scott Bakula in to manage the team. And I'm a big Scott Bakula guy. Necessary Roughness, terrific movie. Quantum Leap, great TV show. Love Scott Bakula. It's not his fault the movie sucked. The movie sucked because no one cared about the other characters, because they only had a few of the originals back. They had Taka Tanaka, who was in Major League 2, who was funny, but not enough people care about. Roger Dorn was back in a limited role. But outside of that, not a lot of characters you cared about. And for that reason, Major League 3 was a disaster. College football. Let's go to that now. College football we care about. We care about pageantry. We love the passion. We root for the logo on the helmet. It's because it's what we've known our entire lives. We're passionate about our teams. We're also passionate about those that represent those teams. We're passionate about players. Bo Jackson is an Auburn Tiger. Herschel Walker is a Georgia Bulldog. Reggie White is a Tennessee Vol. And they were throughout their career, and they remain that in everyone's memory, regardless if you're a fan of those teams or not. It's Major League One and Major League Two, baby, and I'll watch it on repeat for that reason. College football is going to diminish because there are fewer main characters that return. And what you end up with is Major League Three. And I pray that college football does not turn into Major League Three, where we don't know the characters from year to year. Which leads me to a missing point this weekend at SEC meetings that no one is talking about. All of this talk about revenue sharing and money and Title IX and where's it going to go and how much does each player get, I think that's all interesting. I think it'll all be worked out in the courts, and we will know the answers to those questions by fall of 2025. But one area where this is all going to help is player retention. I do believe that a hidden benefit in all of this, now that the players are going to make a substantial amount of money, especially if we go to the sports that make the money and give them a share of the revenue, it does make it possible to come up with some structure where the commitments are more than 1 year. And then players can see the value of being the returning character, of being associated with one school, of staying 3 or 4 years and not using the transfer portal for leverage. I am not anti-transfer portal throughout. There are many benefits to the portal. I think players who aren't seeing playing time at a major school can transfer down and be a star at another school and really help those programs. And then they can attach themselves to those brands and those programs. It's a chance for opportunity to play for players. I think for players that have played really well at lower levels, it's a chance to move up and prove yourself in the SEC or the Big Ten or the ACC. I think where the transfer portal is damning to everyone is when it's used for leverage from school to school. And that's what it's being used for in a lot of ways now. I had a good season. I'm not going to transfer up or down. I'm going to transfer from Florida to Miami. Or I'm going to threaten you from going from A&M to Texas or Oklahoma to Arkansas. These types of lateral moves don't exist in pro sports unless your contract is over. I'd like to see multi-year agreements on both sides, coach, player, where you can get guys locked in and see the stars stay at one school more often than not and not use that transfer portal as leverage. Hutton, I like Major League One and Major League Two better than Major League Three for that reason.
Well, they get to structure it so they're Major League One now, and that's the key. And the new era of college football will be designed that way. Now, the question is,
now it's also not going to stop coaches from cutting guys.
That's it. That's what I'm saying.
And that's
with
where
roster decisions.
Yeah, it's going to work both ways.
And a cap on roster spots. How does all that play a factor? Because you're recruiting constantly, and you make room. Scholarships are pooled currently. So how does that factor into the rules and the player interest in staying or leaving? There are very complicated scenarios that will play into a decision that a player makes. And a lot of it has to do with the coach and whether or not, if you have a new coach. If you fire your coach, you play the big school's paying the buyout, new coach comes in, Calipari's bringing players with him, right? Like, there are factors to the transfer portal that have to be assumed necessary instead of simply individual benefit. Individual benefit can be a good thing too, based on what the school and the program's doing and the coach.
Well, and it's still a recruitment-based enterprise right now. There's no draft structure, so you still have to lure players in via transfer portal or high school recruiting.
Right.
So it does benefit you to be decent to your own players.
But entering the portal just for offers, you're saying?
Correct. I think where it's the negative is we're seeing a lot of leverage plays. I'm going to go peek in the portal and see how much I'm worth to programs like this one. And I can flirt with them and get either a big-time raise at my school or bolt and go somewhere else. And I think you're kind of missing the point of branding with college if you do that. Now, I want guys to get paid. I don't want them to get screwed over by the school they're at and not get some sort of market value also.
Yeah. They're always going to see it, though, with On3.
It's weird to have it in writing, Hutton, but it's almost like a gentleman's agreement that every player signed. Let's say like college baseball did before, with the draft rules. You got to be 3 years removed from high school. So you go and play college baseball for 3 years. It's a 3-year commitment. Let's say every time you sign a scholarship with a school, you're going to share on the revenue, whatever the agreement is there, for 3 years. Now, there can be a joint decision by coach and player to let someone out of that to go into the portal. And then those players go into a box, then they can sign a 2-year agreement. Let's say it's still multi-year, but wherever they go, they're signing up for 2 years. And that's really reserved for those that get there, maybe aren't as good as the coaches thought, are in a tough roster spot where they're never going to play, and they know it, and the coaches can just be decent about it and say, yeah, we'll shake hands and you go to the portal.
So you're saying just the money involved from the school itself, right?
I'm saying
if there's a contract involved, it's a two-way contract.
Yeah.
So does the contract follow you if the school's going to act a different way after you sign instead of hold you hostage?
I think the revenue share you sign with the school has to be a two-way contract with school and player. So the school is beholden to you for 3 years also. I'm saying if there's, and I don't know how you write this up legally, but if there's a mutually agreed upon situation, an example, guys getting run off the roster, right? End of the year meeting, Jonathan Hutton comes to me and I say, Jonathan, you're a good kid. You played your butt off at outside linebacker. You're 5th on the depth chart.
But you're still getting the money.
And you got guys there. Yeah, you got the money. You've got a scholarship. But if you'd like to go in the portal, we have these 3 other schools talk to us about you. These were your other finalists. We will let you out of this contract. And then you can go sign a 2-year deal because you've already played 1 year here with another school.
But what about so we're about to find out about the Jaden Rashada situation. Because the schools are going to use the payments as leverage in recruiting said player. Mm-hmm. And then you could have a scenario like you're saying. So a player locks in on a contract, and then you have the scenario, but it was used as a recruiting tool and a lure to get you there in the first place. See, there have to be measures on both ends of this, instead of the coach bolting whenever he wants to or dipping his toe in the waters to get a raise when it's raise season. When Tennessee opens and Oklahoma State.
I am on the record.
They have to do this.
I am all for coaches having NFL-like contracts.
They have to.
And being locked in and not playing that game every year.
But
I'd love to see that now without this other stuff.
But the game will continue to be played on the recruiting end of it, not just the player end of it. So I think the portal is just one end of the recruiting loophole.
I'm saying when you work out your NIL and your revenue share with the school you sign with, it's a 3-year commitment. And you're going to get that money, and it's not going to be a situation like Rashada where an NIL collective offers a bunch they're not going to pay. Then they back out of it. That wouldn't be allowed in this deal. I'm saying those that use the portal for leverage, put their name in there to try to get even more money after a year from someone, I want to curb that part of the process from happening.
And you could have a redshirt year that counts.
Yeah, because
you
right
now you have to be 3 years removed from high school to get to the NFL draft to begin with.
Right.
So that would have to include the 3 years would include the redshirt year where you don't even play.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you get after the 3 years, the contract's up, and you move on. Marvin Harrison Jr., for instance, has the deal with who is it? Fanatics. Fanatics was a sponsor. They were paying him in college. They want to continue that contract that they say is still intact in the NFL. But again, they're saying it follows him there. But in this case, the 3-year deal that you're throwing out there would not necessarily follow. There's no sponsorship involved unless the player wanted to do so.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look out for the fan in this because there is a level of, that guy played for my school? You just forget. I know Kentucky fans have complained about this for a while with Calipari. They loved it when they won a national title. But, I mean, you see guys in the NBA, and it's like, did they play on the 2014 Kentucky team or the 2018 team? I don't even know because there were so many one and dones for so many times that you barely associate them with the school. Well, now there's one and done with the portal where guys have one breakout year with you, and then they go in the portal and they re-up and get more money elsewhere.
Right.
There's a law of diminishing returns. Are we seeing it on Saturday right now? No. I think the product itself is good. I'm still entertained by the sport. I watch Ohio State and Michigan, and it feels like Ohio State and Michigan of 50 years ago. If you're watching the game, it doesn't seem very different. But I do think that if you continue to have players move around and play musical chairs and go from program to program to program consistently, you lose some of that feeling of connection with certain players to a program. And I'd love to see that prevented for the fans' sake. Now, we talked about college athletes have it better than they ever had before right now.
Right.
And they're about to get it even better starting in 2025. with this revenue sharing, it's getting to the point where, like we talk about with the NBA, it's almost too slanted to the player to just do whatever they want to make as much money as possible and to go from program to program to program. It benefits you financially to do that right now.
The only
I'd
way
like to stop that.
The federal legislation has to come through sooner rather than later because everyone's scared of lawsuits. They're settling for $2.7 billion.
Yeah.
Because you have a handful of lawsuits that you'll be slapped with, and you end up paying. I mean, think about what the payments would have been for the NCAA had they not settled.
I also don't
just based on the fact that you can do literally anything that you want to right now.
Look, Greg's saying he's a smart guy, and he'll have a lot of this figured out. But when we spoke earlier in the week about him saying, I've never had a college athlete come to me and ask to be taxed.
Yeah, no one wants to be taxed.
I'm still thinking, though, they're going to get taxed as W-2, even if they're not employees. Like, I know the goal is to avoid them being employees of the university.
But you're not taxed on your scholarship. And they're going to try to work this through.
So you think that's going to be bonus scholarship money? A
scholarship player is not an employee. There's language involved here that comes through the school for benefit purposes,
right?
For athlete experience and.
I don't understand how the taxes work on that. I'm saying now you're not just giving them a scholarship, but giving them a check of a revenue cut every year. I feel like taxes are going to come out of that.
There's going to be some language involved to where it's going to be. I mean, you get money and you get a card if you go to the campus right now as a player, right? And you have money on that you're not taxed with. That's a benefit. You can spend that how you get your books, you get your food, whatever you want. You get a free place to stay on campus or off campus with an apartment in some cases.
Yeah, I'm just talking about actual cash money check being presented to someone. Feels like they'd have to tax that. Maybe not. Maybe they work it out with the federal government to not tax it. I don't know how,
maybe
but
maybe they just give you cash.
That's
straight cash.
It worked. It's worked for years. I mean, $100 handshakes. SMU didn't become the Pony Express by giving out taxable donations to Eric Dickerson and Craig James and all those guys. They did it by $1,000 handshakes.
Connor Stallions was paid, and I'm sure paid handsomely in cash.
Giving cars from used car lots to players.
Was Connor Stallions paying the scouts that would go to other games on his behalf in a check?
There's got to be some Venmo.
There were a couple
somewhere.
Venmo payments, right?
Yeah. I think they probably operate through Venmo.
Or just straight cash, homie.
They probably, people put funny, the memos, they put funny memos when they pay someone something on Venmo, a joke with people.
Yes.
He probably put like scouting work with like a laughing, crying emoji next to it. $500 here, $500 there.
Film work.
Right. Film study.
Film study, yes.
With the emoji with the dude with the sunglasses on. That was sent with it for film work.
Yeah, video shoot.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be. A cell phone service. Chad,
Connor Stallions, what a guy.
Money's going to be made with Netflix and the SEC with a behind-the-scenes show that's much like the Drive to Survive style show that we saw with F1. We're seeing it with the PGA Tour as well. SEC and Netflix closing in on a deal for this type of football series where programs will be able to opt in and join in on a show like this. Georgia's already been mentioned as being one of those programs that's showing interest. You don't have to be involved. You can be. And ESPN apparently is all for it because they view it as a billboard for their Saturday and sometimes, in some cases, Thursday coverage of what they're doing now with the mega contract for the licensing deals with the SEC moving forward for broadcast purposes.
Yeah,
I love it.
People are going to be interested in this. They're going to watch it. I'd be curious to see the level of access or lack thereof the schools will give.
Ole Miss gave a lot to the SEC network. Kiffin.
Yeah, yes and no. I would still say, because I've watched Drive to Survive, Full Swing, and Quarterback, which are all very similar in their access. I would say all three of those have way more access granted than SEC Inside, which this will be a souped-up version of that.
Yes.
That's the SEC Network, ESPN version. They go week to week.
I don't know, being that you're opting in, the way it's worded right now is, David Ubben, the way he worded it was, they'll have some say in the final product.
Yeah.
Some say instead of final say is different. That's different language than what we're used to with Hard Knocks.
I'm going to watch it. I'm very interested in it. I want to see what teams participate. if it's like Drive to Survive, which goes to basically a different racing team each episode, and follows it much like Full Swing goes to a different player, you're just going to get a different program each episode. And it's going to be building up that week of the game, go through game highlights, do all that.
Now think of NIL involved in this.
Right. And I think the people at Netflix are experts at doing these type of docuseries, so it will be very stylish, very well produced, as opposed to the SEC Network version, SEC Inside, which is fine, but it's mainly a bunch of slow motion highlights of the game that week.
Yes.
With a voiceover. It's kind of NFL film style. Slow motion touchdowns, plays, then guys yelling at each other on the sideline, pumping them up, and then it goes back to a voiceover. This will be more than that. I'm quite confident of it.
And I think
because of Netflix.
Awesome. It'll be awesome.